Welcome to the Marketing Stir podcast by Stirista, where we chat with industry leaders and get their take on the challenges facing the market. And maybe we'll have a little fun along the way.
On this week's episode of the Marketing Stir, Ajay and Vincent are joined by Allyson Dietz to discuss how TransUnion collects and leverages consumer data to provide high-quality marketing solutions.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Stirista's The Marketing Stir. I am your happy host, Vincent Pietrafesa, the Vice President of B2B Products here at Stirista. We talk all things marketing, stirring things up. Get it? Now you do. Anyway, let's talk about Stirista just for a moment. That's it. Stirista, we are a marketing technology company. We have our own data, business to consumer, business to business. We help companies through our technology access that data to help them get new customers. Email marketing, display, connected TV. Email me, vincent@stirista.com. That is how confident I am. I just gave you my email address, and thank you for emailing me. Not always for what I intend it to be, but hey, you're listening. I'll take it. Also, I'm very happy because I'm going to see this gentleman. You know, people were like, are you guys really like this all the time? We are like this. It's always good to see him. I'm going to see him. He is receiving an award. I'm going to embarrass him for a little bit here at the Pacific Asian American Conference. We're going to be in the Baltimore area. He's receiving it for being an Asian business owner and just excelling at what he does. My co-host, CEO, Mr. Ajay Gupta. What's up, Ajay?
Hey, Vincent. Yeah, I look forward to being in DC. It's one of the nicer areas, I think, the National Harbor area. It's pretty cool. But it's for the fastest growing Asian American owned business.
Love it. You know, every year you get a sash. I love it. You get a big award, and I love seeing you in that sash. And the tradition continues. We got to get our photo. We're also going to be there with that does. I don't know if you know this, Ajay, or maybe you do because it's one of the happiest days of your life. That marks 6 years of me being at Stirista.
I would not forget it for the world. It's right up there with my kids' birthdays.
Thank you. I don't know. We're going to talk to our guest about if he forgot it. I don't know. I think she can tell if you forgot it or not. But yes, 6 glorious years, 15 years of knowing each other, right? But 6 years at Stirista. But yeah, it's been great. It's been great. Couple things, announcements. We don't take any sponsorships here, but I want to talk to you about some cool events coming up. June 18th, the Marketing Club of New York, for which I am a board member. We're doing a cool event called Cannes Abandonment. It's those people who don't get to go to Cannes. Not everyone does, right? So it's a cool event here in New York City, June 18th. Check it out, marketingclubny.org. Also, our friends, we're going to be doing something with the Echo Awards, the echo-awards.org. Remember those, AJ? The Echo Awards? Did we win one? We were nominated at one point.
We did. We did win one for our work with Great Clips back in the day. And then the award sort of disappeared along with DMA, but I did hear they're bringing it back.
They're bringing it back. The DMA is not coming back, but they're like, I think the ANA now, but the Echo Awards are coming back. I always wanted to host the Echo Awards. So let's put that out to the energy, into the universe. Excuse me. That's how excited I am. I'm losing my voice. I'm not. It's here. It's back. Anyway, AJ, we've got a great one today. This is a company that people have heard of, right? We haven't had a company on like this before, right? But you hear it, you're like, oh, I know them. But do you really know them? There's so many different parts of this organization. We have an amazing guest. Again, one of those guests where I'm like, I feel like I know Allyson. She my pal? We'll see. The company is TransUnion. You've heard of TransUnion a lot of different ways, right? I'm grateful for TransUnion for helping me get a mortgage and showing me that I have an amazing credit score. So let's talk to her, ladies and gentlemen. It is Allyson Dietz. She is the Senior Director of Marketing at TransUnion. Ladies and gentlemen, Allyson, what's going on?
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. Nice to see you.
It's good to see you. So Allyson, first couple questions, right? Did AJ forget that it was my 6 year anniversary? What do you think?
Absolutely, he did. No
You could
question.
see it.
I think it seems to be that you guys are so close that maybe he just never, and never, it feels like, 6 years feels like 60.
Yeah, well, it does to me. It definitely feels like I've been here for 60 years. But yeah, clearly forgot it. If you're any of those people who watch the crime shows and you could see like they clearly lying that he remembered it.
Yeah, no, but I will add it to my calendar because I know you're a sensitive
He'll
guy.
never forget again, is what he's
Yes.
saying.
What he means by that is I'm going to remind him all of next week when I see him. That's what I mean by that. But Allison, great to see you again. I want to talk about TransUnion because, as I was mentioning in the beginning there, people know it for one thing. Now, I know it for a variety of different things because I'm in this business. But first thing, right? People probably think credit, they probably think that. But talk to us about TransUnion, your role in particular. Would love to learn more about that.
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to say congratulations. You didn't give me a prep that you were going to win this award. So congratulations. It sounds like a really important opportunity for you. And to answer your question though, Vincent, so yes, I work at TransUnion, which most people think of the credit bureau first and foremost, which is a common and a core part of what we do is obviously around credit. We really focus on sort of at the sort of connective tissue is being able to provide information for good. So information and data kind of underpins a lot of different things. So the idea of we know a lot about consumers and we know a lot about them from a credit perspective. We know a lot about them from in terms of, whether or not they are who they are from a fraudulent perspective. So we're able to help a lot of companies better understand if there's fraudulent behavior that's occurring. And then last but not least, so the company and the part of the company that I sit in is the marketing solutions business, which we call True Audience officially. But those are all a suite of identity powered marketing solutions that really help guide our clients, whether and primarily, agencies, marketers, media companies. We really help them create a data foundation, identity powered solutions that provide advanced data driven insights and analytical tools. And really give them an idea of, that 360-degree view of the customer. So it's very similar in terms of, data and customer acquisition, but in the same vein, it really focuses on things like being able to reach your customers, engage your customers, and then ultimately measure. So measurement is a big component of what we do as well, and help our clients understand that marketing impact.
No, I love that, and that really gives a deeper explanation on what you do because I know there's a variety of different parts. And now, prior to this or during you were at Newstar, but take us even back further, Allison. How did you get started in marketing? Was it a clear path? Was it some people were like, I studied religion and I'm in marketing. We're like, well, that's
Well, I listened to your last podcast recently, and the one that you did with Prudential, and it was interesting to hear his journey was more related to music, and him
yeah.
starting in music. So, I'm not that cool or that interesting. I studied both marketing and statistics actually at university, and so that has been sort of the impetus for me being always in data analytics, that ecosystem. I started out as more of a practitioner in the analytics space, so I worked at a company called Nielsen, which most people are familiar with, especially if you're in New York. But I actually worked a lot with CPG manufacturers, helping them to better understand, who was buying their products and, how the market was evolving and, whether or not their marketing was working effectively. So really sort of what I would consider to be more custom analytics off of syndicated data sets. That's essentially where I started. So I started more in the sort of consulting or analytics space, and then moved into pure marketing over a very odd journey. I went into a product role, and then I went into product marketing, and now I lead marketing strategy for our True Audience business. So that means essentially that I get to market to marketers, which is a tough spot to be in truth, because their expectations and what they're asking for and what they see, they're more judgmental, I think, of a marketing campaign than your average consumer, for example. So it's really interesting space to be in, and so I do get to think about sort of all of the components of our marketing strategy, whether that's how we show up to our customers, B2B customers, from a creative standpoint, from a content standpoint, all the way through to, what paid media activations are we doing, and what does paid search look like, and how do we show up at events, including Cannes. You mentioned Cannes, the anti-Cannes event. So that's one of our big tentpole events too. So we'll be there, engaging with a lot of our customers and partners during that time. So it's a very comprehensive role of sort of telling our story in the marketplace.
You've worked for one of the most data-driven companies in the world, and as you mentioned, it's a tough job to market to those judgy marketers. But how do you go about identifying your customer? What does that thought process look like for you?
So, I mean, luckily, having been in this space for a long time, it does help to sort of know and have that experience of, what marketers are really ultimately trying to achieve. I have had the pleasure of working with some of the biggest marketers in the world: Unilever, Walmart, Kraft Heinz, Coca-Cola, you name it. Reckitt Benckiser. I spent a long time working in the UK actually with Reckitt. So all of those companies, I've seen how different sort of particularly large scale enterprise companies work and operate from a marketing standpoint. So there's a little bit of just experience that comes into it. But I also work very closely with, my partners at TransUnion. So, product marketing has a really strong role of helping to, really unpack the nuances of what that buyer persona looks like, and what they're concerned with in today's market landscape. We spend a lot of time listening to podcasts, reading up on Ad Exchanger, Ad Age, and then also, talking to our sales team and our strategy teams internally who are on the front lines of talking to those customers every day, so that you can stay up to date with what those kind of key pain points are. So it's really a comprehensive listening game. And, I personally really enjoy that aspect of it. Having been in analytics and consumer insights a big portion of my career, it's a different kind of consumer insight for sure. It's more of a B2B consumer insight, but it's still a very big component of really understanding, what makes people tick and what keeps them up at night every day, so that you can, build campaigns, build creative, build content that really answers some of those pain points and addresses some of those pain points.
And you've been doing this for a little while at some big, very big companies. What have you seen in terms of the consumer expectations and how it's been changing as more and more people want personalization? How do you get that right?
So I love that question, because we recently did a consumer pulse survey. So we do a quarterly consumer pulse survey at TransUnion, and it answers the gamut of questions, from what do you think about credit and risk and, the economy, all the way through to marketing use cases. And so we actually in our last survey asked the consumers what their perception was of personalized marketing. And so, actually 39% of consumers still expect brands to personalize their online shopping experience. And in fact, 40% of consumers actually indicate that personalization makes them more likely to buy, and increase their affinity for brands. And I love that 40% stat in particular, because it does suggest that marketers have a role to personalize that experience and to make sure that consumers feel connected to the brand, to the shopping experience, in order to actually increase their likelihood to convert. So personalization is still a very big component of how people shop and how people think, and that's more of their active mindset. They're actually looking for that personalization. I think the majority were either actively looking for personalization or were neutral to it. So very few were sort of against the idea of personalization. And so in fact, I think marketers are really in a good position to really focus on that. What we also found, and you asked about the consumer mindset, and one of the things that we asked a little bit about is this idea of privacy. Because, we've had a lot of conversations over the last, let's say 5 years around privacy and the evolution of consumer perception of privacy. And so, 80% of consumers are concerned about sharing their personal information, but majority of them were really worried about identity theft. So it was really this idea of identity theft that was really concerning them more than anything else. So I think you really have to build, as a marketer, you have to build that personalization and that relationship with the consumer, so that you can ensure that they do in fact feel protected, and then they're willing to give you their information because there's a trusted relationship there. so that you can build upon that and continue to market them effectively.
Allyson, you did mention Cannes, and you're going. Stirista will be there as well. It's just a lot of those people who are not getting to go, right? Or
I think it's a very good idea. I wasn't suggesting it wasn't. It's a great idea.
no, I thank you. We're hoping it draws a lot of people. But I remember TransUnion. We were just talking earlier where AJ and I we always talk about where we met and hung out as young marketers back in the day at the DMA conference. TransUnion, those parties, those events, huge. Like you do it up well, you do it up huge, do it up so fun. Talk to us about Cannes. Talk to us about other trade shows you're attending, because like our listeners would love to hear that. They're always like, which one is good? AJ talked about Possible a couple weeks ago. Love to learn your story. Where you going?
Yeah. What do you think about Possible, AJ? We were there as well. I'm curious what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I thought this was my second year doing it. I thought it was good. It was definitely felt a little overcrowded this year. Um,
It was intense.
yeah. Especially that hotel bar. It was could not really get a drink there in the evenings.
No, not a good idea. It's the best
Yeah.
to avoid. That was my strategy.
Right. Yeah. So I think I mean, it's great for them. They have grown leaps and bounds, but it's almost like they have outgrown the space within a couple of years. But it's hard to complain about the location in general, Miami in April. So, and it was actually happened to be on my birthday that Tuesday, so that was fun.
Oh, oh no. That's how you had to spend your birthday. That's pretty rough. I'm sorry to hear that.
We
Um,
found some things to do, so.
That's good. That's good. It could be worse. At least you had a fun space to be in. Yeah, so we do spend we sort of have 5 tentpole events throughout the year. We have CES, we have Possible, we have Cannes, we have our own customer event that we host for our customers, which is great. Great, brings together a lot of marketers in the fall, and then we do ANA Masters of Marketing. Those are sort of our core, sort of heavier activations that we focus on. But beyond that, we have a really good relationship with companies like the industry orgs like ANA, ARF, MMA, and really we try and sort of sprinkle those throughout the year. Ad Week's another space where we try and have a pretty big engagement, and then Beat. So it really kind of depends on the persona. So we try and make sure that we have engagement across the year with these different personas, whether that's a marketer persona or more of an industry sort of publisher platform persona, and make sure that we have touch points throughout the year to engage with them. And so, it really kind of depends on the customer. We obviously show up differently at those different places, but Cannes a big one for us. We are going to be there. And, I think it's different for everyone. We're not taking space on the beach. We're not like a Meta who's kind of built out this huge monstrosity of ecosystem, which is great for them. We actually partner with another company, MediaLink, that helps us sort of take space that we can host meetings and engage with our customers and have sort of a social environment. And then we're partnering with our some of the organizations I mentioned earlier, some of our customers, to be on different stages and in different places throughout the week. So it's a big, busy week. It's of course the last week of school for my kids. My kids end school on the 16th of June, which is super late, and I will be in France. So I'm hoping my husband can keep his act together and he can make sure that he holds down the fort that last day of school and make sure everybody gets to where they're supposed to go and has that cute last day of school picture. We'll see how that looks.
Yeah, the one like compared to the first day of school.
Yeah.
Right. I know.
It's a little different when dad's taking it. I mean, who
Oh
knows
yeah.
if they're going to be even looking
It's
at the
going to be
camera.
like of your kid's ear. That's it. It's just going to be, I know. My wife is away this week in LA, and I'm like the hardest part is like lunch duty, because like they're different schools, and my one kid is like, you can't bring peanut butter. Don't you dare bring peanut butter. The other is like, you could bring it, and I just forget. And
It's really hard to keep all that straight. It
I
really
know.
is.
It is crazy. But yeah, so go check out TransUnion at Cannes. Also, AJ's birthday is April 29th. Boom. You see that date, AJ? I remember
Yeah,
things.
he remembered. I mean, I think he just found this out though. You told him when it was, so I don't know that he knew that ahead of time.
No, he didn't say no. It's see, this is
You just looked me up on Facebook.
I did actually. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, Allison, you mentioned something about the task of marketing to marketers. Marketers are savvy. You need something to stand out. I always say, like, hey, someone marketing to my SVP of marketing, good luck. You better have a really compelling message for him. How do you separate yourselves? Not sounding like everyone else.
It is a challenge for sure. It is a big challenge in the marketing and the data ecosystem space for sure, because a lot of people have similar stories, similar things. We really focus on the use cases and the pain points that we solve for our clients. So being able to help understand the connected picture of the true picture of a consumer. So for example, that's kind of what underpins everything that we do. So whether that true picture of the consumer is in the credit space, or whether that true picture of the consumer is in the fraud space, or whether the true picture of the consumer is in the marketing space, we can help our clients better understand, who they are. And the reality is that, consumers have a lot of different facets of who they are. So we have a campaign that we've just launched recently that's this idea of the duality of the consumer, which I think is pretty cool. And it actually reminded me of your last guest again, of like the idea of I am a marketer, but I'm also a musician. I think people have, multiple sides of them. I think you said in your last podcast, Vincent, you're a comedian and, you work at Stirista. So I think there's all these different components of who a consumer is, whether or not you're a PTA mom or you're in the boardroom. Those are kind of the things that we're trying to show in that campaign, is this idea of, being able to see all aspects of the consumer and where they are, whether that's online, whether that's offline, whether that's, their email addresses, or, the business email address, or their personal email address, all these different data drops that we make as consumers, being able to pull all that together in a holistic way, connect the dots across a fragmented data ecosystem, being able to help, reach audiences. They're complex and they're in a lot of different places, and you want to reach them at, in all the places where you want to reach them, and not just part of their customer journey. And then being able to measure across all those little data hops and see whether or not that journey is actually driving performance for the business. Those are all the things that we're trying to convey. So, it's really about this idea of, bringing clarity to the chaos of the marketing ecosystem. Today's marketers are faced with a lot of challenges, and it's not easy because, marketers have 15 or more MarTech solutions in their tech stack. They have consumers who they're trying to reach, whether they're, different segments of the business, and whether they're, Hispanic, whether they're, non-Hispanic, whether they're, affluent, whether they're, moms. There's so many different segmentation strategies that marketers are trying to deploy, and they need sort of a partner that can help guide them through that chaos.
So, Alison, a little fun fact you probably don't know is one of Newstar's co-founders, Dennis Ainge, is on our board.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I was curious how the merger was from kind of a marketing point of view.
Great question. So yes, I came to TransUnion via the Newstar acquisition. So that was made a couple years ago. And that was really an opportunity for TransUnion to extend beyond their credit space. So they had solutions, they had been acquiring solutions in the marketing ecosystem, TrueOptic, TrueSignal, and they finally made a big bet and bought and TransUnion bought Newstar. So that Newstar acquisition gave them sort of that marketing identity graph that underpins a lot of what I'm talking about. So, we obviously have a lot of credit data, so we know, your credit score, but you can't actually use that data for marketing purposes. That's actually, a very regulated industry. That means that there's very much a lot of separation. I always say church and state, but essentially it's church and state between the credit side of the business and the marketing identity graph. And we do that because, there's not that you can't, send sort of credit informed marketing campaigns, but we keep that data very separate. And so, the Newstar acquisition was really an opportunity to kind of expand beyond what they had in their toolkit, and really, broaden their consumer base, their customer base, to more marketing use cases. So, like every acquisition, there's learning and a journey, but ultimately we're at a point where we're fully integrated. All of our data is on what we call sort of OneTrue, which is a data infrastructure that underpins all of our solutions across the TransUnion portfolio. So it keeps that data from between credit and marketing separate, but it is also a framework that allows us to sort of push that data to the different use cases and to the different platforms that we need, and access data from our partners, whether that's across the marketing ecosystem. So So we're now fully integrated as part of that one true portfolio, and allows us to sort of utilize our data assets in a lot of different ways.
Talk to us a little bit about the identity graph, because it's a word that a lot of companies use differently. But what does that mean to you and to you?
Yeah, so we have an offline and online identity graph. So on the offline side of the house, that's things like name, phone number, home address, and then on the online side of the house, those are things like, well, cookies have always been a part of that, but now that's even less so. It's more email address, IP address, et cetera. So, being able to sort of see that holistically, all the different online digital touch points that you have, as well as all the offline digital touch points that you have, just allows marketers, particularly when they're looking to do things like data enrichment. So let's say they have a data set that underpins what their CRM data set. We were talking about collecting, personalizing information. A lot of marketers have been really building up their first party data over the last few years. And so, that first party data set, we can come in and help them enrich that. So, is vincentp@gmail.com also vincent@gmail.com? Being able to sort of connect the dots between those and give a holistic view as to all of these, deduplication, all those records, we can help our clients do all that.
Allison, I wanted to talk about, because we talked about campaigns, we talked about personalization earlier. What is a campaign that you worked on, or like one of your favorite campaigns that kind of in your mind nailed personalization, nailed the campaign? It could be one that you've seen, one that you've worked on.
Oh, that's a good question. One that I've seen versus one that I've worked on. I mean, right now, I think our campaign's pretty exciting. We're really thinking about the customer journey from a B2B standpoint and all the different touch points that would, essentially move what I would call a lead in the B2B space from cold to maybe cool to maybe lukewarm to maybe warm, so that our sales team can actually engage with those customers, those prospective customers, at a point where they're ready to actually engage with us. I think, we talked about, being able to personalize, and then also the fear of, sharing your information. That fear of sharing your information on the consumer side, the 77% of consumers who are worried about identity theft, they're also not willing to share their information with you on the B2B side either. So, we really have to make sure that our customers are willing to engage with us and we hit them at the right point with the right experience, versus, starting at the top and just hammering them with, hey, give us your information. Give us your information. You want to read this piece of content? You have to log in and provide us all of the information about who you are. And that's a good experience when the customer feels like, hey, I've spent enough time understanding who you are. I know why I might give you my information. But when you ask them, on the first date, essentially, I think that's a little too soon. So, I'm really proud of this idea of being able to kind of craft a customer journey that starts with at the very top of the funnel. And traditionally we haven't done a lot of top of funnel marketing. And so this idea of, doing top of funnel marketing, out of home, CTV, et cetera, and helping them move through that journey and to the point where they're ready to actually give us their information is a really exciting place to be, and to be being very thoughtful about how that journey flows.
But I love that concept, right? Especially, top of funnel, helping companies out there. I think that's the best way. I always like to, when I talk to partners and clients of ours, I'm like, how would you want to be marketed to? Would you respond in this first one, the second one? And you kind of put the onus on them, and they're like, oh, I think 3 touches, 4 touches. So that I love hearing that. I want to talk about, Allison, usually there's a product, there's a launch that always results in some marketing. But in your case, this is maybe a two-part question. Really, you to use TransUnion, to utilize pieces of the identity graph, that's just not anyone, right? So you really have to kind of hone in on a client. Like, what's an ideal client for you? And also, how do you kind of stay compelling throughout the year as opposed to just like one event around a product?
It is easy to just engage on a big launch, right? I think that's where a lot of companies really invest. Hey, this is our big bet for the year, for example. And I'm guessing you guys probably do something similar. And there's nothing wrong with that strategy. What we've really done is tried to take a more of a data-driven approach. And in fact, we did our first ever brand survey for the marketing solutions business, meaning we asked a bunch of marketers, primarily enterprise marketers. So I mentioned, example companies, but you may think like big, large retails like Home Depot, Walmart, United in the travel space. Those are bigger companies that are typically, spending a lot from an advertising standpoint and are a little bit more sort of in our sweet spot. But when I say that, a lot of marketers don't even know who we are. We found that 60% of marketers don't even know that we play in this space. And so we really been focusing our marketing efforts around trying to drive that awareness, that familiarity and consideration. So when you ask, big launch, for us, our strategy at the moment is really around, driving awareness. And, that's a very different place to be than, hey, we have this big new product. We're trying to drive awareness around that new product. We're trying to drive awareness of us as a product portfolio. And so that's a different challenge. It definitely means that you have to stay top of mind and run throughout the year. So I mentioned, having marketing, campaigns that run throughout the year. So more of a, not an always on, but sort of a, big tentpole moments around, the upfronts, around Cannes, around Ad Week, etc. And making sure that we have sort of push from a marketing standpoint around those tentpole moments, but then a steady flow that kind of runs throughout the year as well. And I think, we talked about events. So being present at those big events also helps to drive that familiarity and consideration. But we really think about those events as being an opportunity to also talk to customers one-on-one, because, that's the really exciting thing about being at those events. I'm guessing you feel the same way. It's like, it's the greatest part about it is just being able to talk to customers and prospects one-on-one and have, take them to a dinner or have more of that high touch engagement with them. Celebrate your birthday, maybe. And I think, that's a very different experience than just trying to have that steady drip of memorability.
Allison, hopefully this is a fun question for you. We ask all of our guests. I'm sure you get a lot of messages on LinkedIn. What's a message that gets a response from you? And more importantly, what's one that really annoys you?
Well, I think in the world of AI, I think we all can agree that you can tell when something has been AI generated because it's not very personalized, it's not very thoughtful. Um, I think it's a little tough to even bother to respond to those types of things. I do think having a personal connection does make a difference. I'm more willing to respond to those types of requests if there is that personal connection, whether it's, hey, I see that you know so and so, or hey, I see that you went to this university and, we have that in common. Those little things are helpful. And I don't think it's in today's day and age, I don't think it's very hard to do a little bit of homework. But it does require a little bit of homework, particularly from that, from those the SDR team who's in the process of actually making that outreach. I think a very generic message is less so. I had my favorite one. I was skiing with my kids and I got a cold call and I answered because I was nervous that it was one of my kids had once, hit their head while skiing. So I was worried that it was the ski patrol calling me that, hey, your kid, go come pick up your kid. So I answered and I was on the ski lift. And the guy was like, hey, I just want to talk to you about my solutions. And I said, well, hey, I'm on a ski lift. I'm probably not going to be able to talk to you. But he actually followed up and said, hey, how was your ski trip? And I thought that was very thoughtful because, that wasn't a lot of effort. But I thought it was actually a good touch of, actually listening and hearing the person that you're trying to reach. So I thought that was a really interesting way to approach it is I think just being thoughtful and mindful of people.
So I got a call while I was at Possible, and it was a Florida number. So I thought maybe it's the hotel or something. So I answered. And it just happened to be this guy was trying to get me to invest in his fund, real like cryptic about it. And so I was like, hey, can you send me your website? And he said, well, you're just going to look at the website and not actually invest. And, I'm like, well, at the very least, I need to look at the website to see who you are. And he basically concluded that I only answered it because I was in Miami because I told him I was like, I have no idea who you are. So he was very dejected and disappointed that I wasn't going to give him money on the spot.
But that's the trick is to catch people when they're traveling so that they're more concerned that there's something related to their travel plans.
Tell us about some of your hobbies, non-work related. We'd love to get to know guests at a more personal level, like if we were having a coffee in Chicago.
Oh, well, I already gave alluded to the fact that I have three kids, so that's my biggest hobby is managing three children. They're 6, 8, and 11. So they're big enough that they're not, you don't need to micromanage them, but they're still small enough that you spend a lot of time. I've recently traveled in or transitioned into a what I would call an Uber driver since they all play every sport they can possibly play. They all play multiple musical instruments. So I'm driving around, keeping them busy. But on the personal front, there's probably three things that I spend most of my time, personal time doing. Um, I love to travel. So I think that kind of ties into my interest in consumers and how consumers live and operate. We actually used to live in England. So we still my first was born in the UK, which is a fun fact. And we love to travel to Europe and particularly anywhere that has really good food and wine. I think it's usually a good sign that people live well in those places. So we took our kids to Italy a couple years ago. We're taking our kids to Spain and Portugal this summer. So trying to get them bought into this, travel lifestyle as well. So that's pretty much my personal life is trying to manage my three crazy kids.
No, I love it. I try to manage my two kids, and I'm going to Portugal this summer as well. So we have to,
Maybe
you
we'll
know,
see each other.
yeah, I know, right? I'm going in August. I shouldn't tell people that because it's like, come to my apartment and rob me anyway. But no, well, someone will be there. Someone will be there. Someone's house sitting.
Someone's
Anyway,
always there.
someone's always there. We have a doorman anyway.
I thought you were going to say your fans are going to follow you to Portugal and
My
robbing
fans
you. Just
from my thriving comedy career, and but yeah, we're going.
Are you doing stand up in Portugal? That would be very
No,
cool.
I've been able to parlay a few trips into it. Like when we went so I was in Scotland years ago for
Did you
Edinburgh,
do the
the
Edinburgh
Fringe.
Festival?
Yeah, I just did stand up there. I didn't do like the one person show for like a month because I was married and my wife was like, "What do you think you're going there for a month? You're nuts." But so yeah, I was able to do that, and then so every time I kind of will do a conference like AJ and I or Stirista, we were just in San Francisco at an event, and clients of ours were like, "We know you're a comic. Can you go do a show?" And I'm like, "Okay." And if you have a supportive CEO who's like, "Yes," because I'm a clean comic. I'm not, And anyway, so yeah, but not this time. But we're going to Portugal, and we'll have to compare. Like, we're going in the summertime, so we'll let you know.
We're going in July. We're gonna
Oh,
beat
good.
you.
Yeah, you're gonna beat me. So good. And you're going like we're looking for family friendly stuff. So Lisbon, all that good stuff. Awesome.
Us too.
I love it. I love it. Look at that. And then we'll have to meet up in person if you're ever in New York and Chicago. Always want to do Wrigley Field, AJ. What do you say we go out and watch a game at Wrigley Field?
yeah, that'd be
Right?
fun.
It's the best.
I know.
It beats the Yankees or the Mets. I don't know which one you
Yeah.
follow, but
Well, yeah, I like the Mets, and the Mets Stadium's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, but there's Wrigley's like historic.
it's iconic. It's like the Red Sox.
Yeah, it is like, there's a few of those stadiums left, right? Yankee Stadium is even new. It's not that old one that has all the history. But I was there maybe like 15 years ago in Chicago, and I was at a conference when the Mets were in town. I'm like, this is it. But it rained every single day, Allison, and all the games were postponed. I've never seen like multiple games just postponed due to rain. But anyway, we'll have to make it out there and we'll have to meet in person. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our pal, Allyson Dietz, our new friend here at the Marketing Star. I love that she did her research and listened to an episode. How fantastic was Allison, ladies and gentlemen? She's the Senior Director of Marketing. Check her out in Cannes. Also, look up TransUnion. You know them, but dig deeper into that organization. This has been another episode of The Marketing Stir. That's Allison. I'm AJ. You know me. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Stir podcast by Stirista. Please like and subscribe. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, please email us at themarketingstir@stirista.com.